Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Modernist Guide. I'm JD, and we're having another metal review today. Trying to get a lot of the big ones that came out this month, at least big ones for me, out of the month of October. And then near the end of the month or the first week of November, I'm hoping to do what I'm going to call Metal Mayhem, which is catch up on metal records that everybody should at least check out, or just my general opinions of metal records that I ended up listening to, whether I really loved or didn't care for, and just kind of get all that out of the way. Today is kind of the big one for the metal community in general. Every Time I Die, founded in Buffalo, New York in 1998 with brothers Keith and Jordan Buckley and guitarist Andy Williams. They've gone through so many drummers and bassists at this point, 22 years now, which is pretty crazy. Fun fact that I always have to bring up now is Andy Williams, their guitarist, still with the band, is now also a professional wrestler. He started around 2015, 2016, and he is actually in the national promotion AEW under the Butcher name. He's in a tag team called Butcher and the Blade, and it's just fucking hilarious and awesome. And the fact that he doubles is pretty cool. I thought he left. He didn't leave. He's still their guitarist, and he also wrestles. It's great. So, Radical is their ninth record. Came out October 22nd. And I have been keeping up with these guys since 2012 with their album X Lives. They've released only two other records since then. So in 10 years, they've done four records. But you can argue their evolutionary projection started in '09 with the New Junk Aesthetic, which is my favorite record by them. Maybe. This one is pretty close, but it's a roller coaster. It's a hell of a journey to me deciding that this record might be their best ever. New Junk Aesthetic was them perfecting the metalcore style that they were really getting into, and it's where they started doing more southern rock, southern metal tendencies. And it's kind of hard to explain what southern metal is. It's just got, rockabilly in it, a little bit of Cash or Elvis in it, kind of in the guitar, and a little bit in the cadence of singing, but it's not like super obvious, and it's more just something you notice, and you can catch it pretty easily. It's not like country accent or twang or anything like that, or stuff sounds like it belongs in a western. I also want to like clarify what metalcore is for people. I don't really believe in caring too much about the genre of something, but it's also for some people who do, it's really important to like clarify the difference. And metalcore is just the idea of hardcore punk and metal put together, simple enough. But it's a more streamlined fusion, and there is something more popular called melodic metalcore, which has a lot more bombastic, clean singing and stadium rock anthems and things like Killswitch Engage or Trivium, but it's a middle ground. Metalcore differentiating itself from melodic metalcore, like why these guys, despite Every Time I Die having several songs with really good, clean vocal choruses and screams, have gotten a lot better, I think. More on that in a second. It's just a level of intensity and speed and just veracity in general. Metalcore is just way more aggressive and way more focused on intense and tight song structures, while you can do a lot of loose sing along aspects of melodic metalcore. Every Time I Die is kind of like been scratching for the throne ever since Dillinger Escape Plan retired or just broke up. They called it quits in like a very good way. Like they just wanted to call it quits. It wasn't anything terribly bad from what I understand. And that was 2016, I believe. The undisputed metalcore kingpins have been converged for just as long as Every Time I Die has been around. But I think they're doing something different that you should always look into. A new Every Time I Die record is interesting because for me, it always is simultaneously feels like they've run out of ideas and it's super hella consistent, anyways. And that's how I felt at the beginning of this record. The first three songs, Dark Distance, Sly, and Planet Shit, are kind of business as usual, just blistering along as viscerally as much you can. Planet Shit was, I think, their first single for the record, and I was like these guys seem like they're kind of running out of ideas. And then song four, Post Boredom, hits, and if you want to just check out one song to see what these guys are really capable of, and like a culmination of their sound of hardcore punk and southern guitar sensibilities and just crunching, catchy, hypnotic vocal styles, it's Post Boredom. Post Boredom might be the best song they ever written. Oh man, I don't know. I went back to like check out other songs I liked a lot from their last like 4 or 5 records, and I don't know, man. It really gets to you. It's the first time in a long time where I didn't see it coming. There is another song on here that I would say close to second, but the only reason why I expected something like it is because there's always at least one song in every Time I Die record for the past like 4 or 5 records since New Jung Aesthetic where they get really melodic and atmospheric and they slow down and it has a darker, more intense feeling. On their 2016 record, Low Teens, it was Two Summers, I believe, and then the one that really gets me is More off their 2014 record, From Parts Unknown. Lives, the not very well aged name Indian Giver. Hopefully they're regretting that a little bit since they seem to be pretty politically progressive. But beyond that, anyways. If you want to just check out one song though, it's Post Boredom. But on the opposite end, if you want to check out just one song, but it has like everything they have thought of creatively and expanding, where Post Boredom is the pinnacle of their specific direct sound, the crowning achievement of their creativity is The Thing with Feathers. It kind of has that guitar intro that people love from Stairway to Heaven in that same atmosphere and sound, not actually ripping off the chords or anything. And then it goes to its own thing. For me personally, the closest like atmospheric stuff that I can think of is the very low and moody, soft vocals and atmosphere of something like Between the Buried and Me or other prog metal records that like take a minute to breathe before they just explode. And so this is the most like intricate prog metal style song I think they've ever done. It also gives me vibes of like Oblivion from Mastodon, but mostly just in vibes and feeling. But if you want a more immersive, dark atmosphere, that song specifically, it's nothing else on the record like it. So it's one of those just unique experiences, but it's worth it. So Post Boredom, Thing with Feathers, that's all you need if you just want to see what their full potential is, especially after 20 years and 9 records. It's those two songs are a twin culmination, and it's great. For the rest of it, it's kind of business as usual, and that's the thing about an Every Time I Die record. They're so consistent that sometimes it's just all right. Like this is also their longest record with their most songs. It's 15 songs, I believe, maybe 16. And that is definitely without the deluxe edition versions that always add 2 or 3 more songs to each record, their longest record ever. They usually clock in around early to mid 30 something minutes. This is 52 minutes, and this is not the deluxe edition that I'm aware of. So it's been 5 years and a huge pandemic since their last record, and they've put down all the meat and potatoes they've had. And it's good and it's a lot. And then at the same time, especially with The Thing with Feathers, sometimes I'm just wanting more out of that creativity of theirs, and it's clearly there, but they like to only do a little bit at a time. And I think that level of moderation is why people keep coming back and why a lot of people see them as just so insanely consistent. Three more songs that I really like, and it's a bit more streamlined and not as intense hardcore, because you can get that anywhere. You can get there with Planet Shit. You can get there with All This and War and AWOL. It's there. You know, you can get what you come for that, but the sweet spots for me is stuff like White Void, which is a little more rhythmic and chanty, and I just kind of like that stuff in hardcore music, in extreme music, where you just like can't escape their assault, but it's still crafted more spaced out and not just like constantly hitting over. It gives you spaces, but it's like pulling you in instead of slamming into you. There's also Sex X Sex, which I'm pretty sure is mocking religious groups and also saying if it's not BDSM, then it's not worth it. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack lyrically on that song. What I preferred would have been a closer is actually the second to last song, which is People Versus, which has a after bridge chorus about not trusting men or don't believe in men. So I'm pretty sure you can guess what that's about. These guys are a very progressive group. The lead singer, Keith Buckley, is always on Twitter talking major shit about conservatives and things. So it's more obvious here, I think, since this is their only Trump-esque post-Trump record, and also after COVID. So there's a lot of different kind of like anger here than before. Yes, it's very clearly anti-authoritarian. Period. You can figure out for yourself what level of anti-authority it is, but it's pretty clear. Especially even though it's kind of derivative for me. Planet Shit is the hallmark of we're fucked, you're fucked, and here's why. To like convince people check it out if they're not sure, if you're not like super into extreme metal. Something I noticed on this record specifically, because I went back to other songs and I don't hear the cadence in the other songs, but this record, again, it's been 5 years and stuff, and maybe Keith's kind of put on some muscle or something, because he used to sound scrawnier. I don't know how to explain that in vocals. Like he sounded thinner, a little more shrill in the other stuff, but here he sounds bigger. He sounds older. That might be one of the big things. He still screams just as well, if not better, but he kind of reminds me of Tim McIlrath of Rise Against. And I mean like early mid 2000s Rise Against, not current. And you know, a lot of people freak out just me comparing them at all. But I think Rise Against is definitely a softer version of the same ideals musically, but just done in a completely different approach and a completely different mindset while still being a type of hardcore punk. It's way more accessible and easier to listen to and easier to accept how they do it. But the screams are just like so visceral and so menacing. And some of his clean vocals, even though he tries to do some of that southern cadence rockabilly stuff, kind of just reminds me of McIlrath's like raspy ass voice. Especially now they've both been doing scream shit for 20 years. Keith has like sustained way better, and he's way more intense. Like I'm saying, if you like Rise Against even a little bit, but you want to get your ass kicked way more, then you should check out this record, especially the new Rise Against record. Oh man, I'm a not. They're one of my favorite bands, or were, and I don't hate them or anything. But they've softened, and that's fine. Meanwhile, these dudes, maybe the same age, are just as pissed. Who knows? It's just how you conceive your music. It's no big deal. One's not better than the other because it's still comparing like apples and oranges. You know, they're both fucking fruit. They both produce seeds. You peel both of them. They taste completely different. Ultimately, I'm gonna have to call this an 8.5, 8.25 maybe. Like, it's one of the better metal records I've heard all year, but it's got so much, I hate to say filler, because it's all good. It's just, it's 15 songs, and about 8 of them you can interchange. It depends on which level of aggression you prefer. And if you prefer all 8 levels, then there you go. You've got a perfect record. So yeah, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it, and like and subscribe, which is the thing that I don't think about saying. So if you do or you don't, thank you for watching. That's the most important part, and I'll see you next time.